This production has been authorized, vetted, evaluated, and approved for your consumption by Wild LLC. You're welcome.
Hey,
We're back.
hey, what's going
We're
on?
back in studio.
Yo, so yeah, it's been what 3 weeks now
Yeah, it's
since
been
we
a while
have
since we've been
been
back
in the studio. We've been on our little summer road trip.
Right.
So here we are again.
We're
Welcome
back.
to a brand new episode of the Opinion City Podcast.
Yes.
I'm King Ralph. He's Parma Sean. Sean, how's it going?
We're going. We're here.
Yeah,
We're back
we
for another
are.
episode 65.
We are back. Yeah.
Woo.
So the last 2 weeks we've been on our little summer road trip. We did Comrades for Vlad
Yep.
at the Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company
Yes.
in Croydon, Pennsylvania 2 weeks
Mhm.
ago. You guys have gotten to see all of the magnificent videos from that event
Yes.
up on the YouTube. Last week we were here in beautiful Lehighton, Pennsylvania at the Mahoning Drive-In for Real Rumble 5.
Yes.
We've got
Amazing
some
show.
really great videos coming out very soon from that. Thank you
Stay
for your
tuned.
patience on that. We want to make sure all of the videos are as spectacular as they can be, so they will be coming up soon. And since it's been a little while since we've been back here in studio, we're going to give this, here we go, we're going to give this one a shot. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see if if I can dust this off. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the show is presented by Wild LLC. When you're looking for the best in the business, choose the financial stability of Wild LLC. Their fiduciary experts will turn even a monetary zero like you into a financial hero like them. Wild LLC, your path to the top. All right.
Crushed it.
Yes.
Killed it.
So, before we get started here, we got a great show today. We got a
Yes.
great guest. Make sure you stay tuned to our main event at the end for top 5 albums. We're very excited about that. But before we get into that, we want to ask you a little favor.
Yes.
It'll only take a few seconds of your time, and it is
3
100%
easy ways.
completely free. Yes, you can support us in 3 free, easy ways. Number 1, boom, hit that like button.
Hit that like button.
Tell us that you enjoy what we're doing, because we already know you enjoy what we're doing. So please hit that like
It
button.
just lets
Let us know. That's right.
No.
Let us know that you love this episode, love our episodes. So hit that like button. Number 2, smash that subscribe button.
Yes.
Absolutely smash it.
Obliterate it.
Get a test tube of your favorite non-judgmental disease and just smash that tube right over somebody's head. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss anything that we're doing. You never miss our new episodes. And of course, hit that share button.
Share it with your friends, strangers, colleagues,
share it with the good folks at the lab where they're testing your blood. Who knows? Share it with everybody. Anybody. Share it with the CDC. Write to the CDC and tell them that you found a great podcast for them. So make sure that you share. If you'd like to take things a little further, guys, we have merch.
We got the merch.
We got lots of merch. That's our newest
Support
logo right there. The Opinion City Wild LLC Let Us In logo, but we've got all kinds of merch. Don't sleep on the fanny packs.
Yes.
We got fanny packs. If you would also like to support us, please follow us at Opinion City Pod to see everything that we're doing on the channel. Follow at Wild LLC to see everything the bosses are doing. And finally, and most importantly, and we say this every time, but we really, truly do mean that this is the most important thing you can possibly do. Please follow and support our guests.
Yes.
You will see links running across the bottom of the screen for today's guests. So please make sure that you support our guests.
Absolutely.
And with that, Sean, it is time. Tell everybody who we got today.
Let's go. We actually, you'll see it when it comes out, but we actually had him before this.
We did.
Spoke to him and the upstanding window and mesh.
Little Real Rumble action.
At the Real Rumble action, but we will have a full, lovely discussion with the Rabid Honey Badger himself. Let's bring him in, Ryan Mooney.
Hey.
Oh,
boy.
You scared me there.
Yeah, what's up, buddy?
Don't do that.
Scratch your face off.
Don't scare people like that. Okay, I'm just here. I was minding my own business. I was scratching the old itch given to me by rabies affliction, and here you're starting to scare me before we even get to a conversation. Let's tone it down a little bit. I love the enthusiasm, but let's reel it in. All right.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's good to scare people with rabies. I don't think that's a thing. So
no. But I want to say, now that I'm starting to come down from, you frightening me half to death, by blindsiding me like that. I just want to say that, I'm really happy to be here and to declare that the Opinion City podcast is officially part of Honey Badger territory.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Wild LLC,
Yes.
our business corporate overlords, of course.
Yes.
But I'm the Rabid Honey Badger Ryan Mooney, Rabid Ryan Mooney. Call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late to dinner or I'll bite your damn face off.
Right.
I always like to say.
Yeah.
But it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, it's great to have you here. We're super excited to talk to you. So why don't we kind of start at the beginning here? Tell us where this wrestling journey begins for the Rabid Honey Badger.
Yeah, well, I apologize in advance too if I am unable to keep scratching myself for the duration of this conversation. I'm going to do my best.
I got you.
Hopefully, as I talk and reminisce about my life events and poor choices up to this point, that'll subside a little bit.
Gotcha.
But as far as professional wrestling is concerned, I have a little bit of maybe sometimes I think an alternate path to being exposed to it or to discovering it for the first time and kind of really developing that passion for it. A lot of people, I think, they start maybe by going to their first live show, maybe by seeing it on television, the old boob tube. However, I was exposed to professional wrestling from an early age via video gaming.
Okay.
Nice.
Right.
I didn't know anything about wrestling beyond the maybe top 2 or 3 people in the industry at the time. I knew who so we're talking about late 90s into early 2000s.
Right.
I knew about Hulk Hogan and I knew about The Rock from Hollywood and all that stuff, but I didn't know about the WWE, WCW. I didn't know about any of that stuff. But my friend, one of my best childhood friends growing up, would always have on his PlayStation 2 at the time, he would have SmackDown Here Comes the Pain.
One of the best wrestling games.
I think to this day has yet to be topped, quite frankly, and I don't think it ever will be.
It's a classic. It's a classic.
He would allow me to come to his house after school, and before my parents would pick me up and take me home to do my homework and eat my disgusting vegetables, I would be introduced to this magical world of professional wrestling with all of these different crazy, wild characters, the theatrics, and of course the athletic competition involved in the whole ordeal, as well as the violence, which especially was heightened and amplified through the video gaming. You could take Brock Lesnar and F5 Rey Mysterio, off the top of the SmackDown fist if you wanted to. And I was a little bit disappointed when I started watching it on TV that kind of stuff wasn't happening.
Right. It wasn't a common occurrence. It wasn't a common occurrence.
I was a little bit let down that people weren't, jumping off helicopters or fighting out into Times Square and all that stuff. But I was exposed to it through that. And my friend was a little bit more well-versed in what was going on in wrestling at the time. So I would be asking him questions, it'd be like a Q&A, like a college lecture or something. I'd be like, who's this guy? Who's this guy in the mask, right? That's throwing all these big guys around with these breathtaking aerial feats, right? So he would kind of educate me on it a little bit. And then I remember another example too was my uncle, who we would visit sometimes as a family. He had, I believe it was WCW Mayhem on the PlayStation.
Yes. Wow.
It was either that one or Thunder. I don't remember exactly which one, but he introduced me to a little bit of wrestling through that. Gotcha. And I knew about Hollywood Hulk Hogan, right? I knew that. But I didn't know any of the other guys. I didn't know who Diamond Dallas Page was. I didn't know who Sting was, even though I saw this guy and I was like, why is this guy dressed up like those guys that are in that band Kiss, like Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons? Like, why did he take their gimmick, and do that stuff? But I do remember like very vividly in that game, always doing like a battle royal, and I would always be Hollywood Hulk Hogan because I didn't know anybody else. And Sting would be in the battle royal. And every single time I would play the battle royal, it would come down to me and Sting, and he'd always eliminate me.
Oh no!
And I was like,
Sting.
It was like, this is insane. And then when I learned later on about Starrcade and about the NWO and about the Sting versus Hulk Hogan feud, I was like, how could I not have beaten Sting? Like that's what is ridiculous. But video gaming really kind of introduced me to it, and then the love kind of like blossomed from there, where I just wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to consume as much of it as possible. So that really led to me religiously kind of following it on TV as a child, kind of growing up.
Gotcha. So
that's crazy though, because you might be the first person we've ever interviewed that got into wrestling from the video games, not from like watching the product.
The first
that's
one.
crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you know what they say, you never forget your first time. So I'm happy to be your first.
Yeah,
all right.
That's definitely true.
Love it.
So how did you then come up with the Rabid Honey Badger character when you were going
as a wrestler? So I mean, I went through, my professional wrestling love kind of continued on through childhood, through adolescence and being a teenager into young adulthood. A lot of my friends kind of stopped liking it or stopped really having that passion for it or that fire for it. Because there was a time where pretty much everyone and their mother at some point in their life has been a wrestling fan, right?
Yes.
Like you're thinking about like the Monday Night War period where people who don't even like wrestling are watching WWF, right? They're watching WCW. They're flipping back and forth between the channels. They're taping one so that they can watch the other one live. And then they're talking about it the next day at school, at the water cooler, whatever. So that eventually like faded away, right? And wrestling became less mainstream over time. And my friends they all shifted towards something else, right? Like kids, adults, all of us, we have short attention spans. So when something doesn't really scratch that itch for us anymore, we kind of go towards something else. But for me, that didn't happen. It was more like, I just want to learn more about this. And as I started learning more about like the different alternate products that were available, right? Not just the WWE, but now there's this, TNA Impact, right? That was kind of grooming all of these guys that are going to end up someday, who knew it at the time, being some of the biggest stars now, right? You had the Ring of Honor, right? Which is like that kind of that indie ground for the people who weren't on television at the time. So as I just kept learning more and more about everything, and I just kept liking it even more. And that's what kind of made me decide to end up like training in wrestling in the first place, because I went to, I was a kid where like you grew up and in school, they talk to you about it. Like, the kids are supposed to go to college, right? Kids are supposed to, go to school and get educated, get a career. My parents were very much of that mindset. They were like, you got to go to college because that's what kids are supposed to do to kind of figure things out, and that's not for everybody. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I went to college anyway. And I was about like 3 years through college. And then I kind of figured out like, well, I'm still kind of really in love with this wrestling thing and have this passion for it. So should I like try this on for size and see if it fits? Because if I don't try it, right, like even if I fail, like would I be happy that I at least gave it a shot and kind of saw it through to its its natural conclusion? Or if I don't do it, would I always kind of be left wondering about that? So I ended up kind of like researching literally on Google at the time, just like top 10, like best wrestling schools in America. And I was like, all right, this one's over in California. This one is in Louisville, Kentucky. I was like, none of these places are close to where I live. So I then found at the time, it was like, oh, the Ring of Honor Dojo out of Bristol, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly. And I had been to Philly a bunch of times throughout my life to see WWE at the Wells Fargo Center and all these different things. So I was like, this place is just a stone's throw away from my house. So, I went and, did an interview with the people running the school, and then decided to kind of sign up, and that really kick-started, everything. But to get to your question in regards to the honey badger persona and how that ended up kind of sticking, I'm of the mindset that some of the characters, some of the personalities that resonate the most with people in wrestling, I think tend to be people's real life personalities just kind of dialed up to 11.
Yeah.
Right. If you're doing something or you're portraying something that is not really who you are at your core, I feel like whether that's in wrestling, whether that's in music, whether that's in acting, any form of entertainment, right? I feel like people can see through inauthenticity. Right? Like people can tell when something is not genuine. So I was kind of looking at like inside myself, and I was kind of like trying to figure out like, who am I? Like who is it that I'm trying to project, that I want people to see, that I want people to take notice of? And I kind of realized that, inside of all of us, me as well, but every human being, right? Like obviously we're a part of civilized society, right? We play by the rules, right? We go to work, right? We come home, we obey the laws and rules, right? We do all these things, but each of us has an animal inside of us. We all have animal instincts, in our DNA that are dormant and don't always come out. Sometimes they come out in short little bursts, right? In those very, emotional, chaotic moments. But I wanted to really tap into that and kind of bring that to the surface. I wanted people to see, right, like what kind of animal I have inside of me. And I wanted an outlet for people to be able to see the real me that I don't get to show to my coworkers, to my family members, to my friends, right? I just wanted a platform and a canvas to just be unequivocally me, right? Unfiltered. And the Rabid Honey Badger is really kind of that channel for me. I was kind of thinking about it a little bit. I was like, I feel like an animal in the ring, with with my speed, with my ferocity, right? With my, ability to be intense, and really bring it to my opponents, right? And I was kind of like, most of the time in the ring, I'm a smaller guy compared to a lot of the people that I wrestle. Not all the time, but most of the time. So I kind of figured, I was like, what's an animal that I could relate to that my experience kind of resonates with? And I kind of thought about this. I was thinking back about it because I remembered that viral video of the honey badger from it's a long time ago. It's a throwback at this point, but at the time that I saw it, it was cutting edge, state of the art stuff. But it was the whole honey badger don't care video, honey badger, crazy animal, in nature, in the animal kingdom. It's one of the smallest animals, but holy hell, it'll fight a lion off if it has to, right? Or die trying. And that's kind of my mentality is, regardless of who you are, where you come from, how big you are, I will fight you tooth and nail, scratch, claw, and maybe even literally bite to try and come out on top. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't go my way. Yeah. But I always give 100% of myself every single time, win, lose, or draw. And that's kind of really where that animal kind of comes from. That's really how that kind of developed.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. As we were preparing for this episode, I started to think about, like, if I was a wrestler, what would what would my animal name be, or like what would be my spirit animal? And I came up with the supplemental sloth, but I don't think that's going to work out too well.
Well, there, if you were the sloth, then I don't know exactly how ferocious they are, but maybe you could get away with playing dead. To try and
I would just lay there. I would just lay there and hang on to the bottom rope like sloths hang on to trees.
There you go. That's it's more of a defensive tactic than an offense.
Exactly.
You know what they say, the best offense is often a good defense.
Yeah.
Is that what they say, or is it the other way around?
No, I think that's what they say. Yeah.
I think
all
that's
right.
what it is.
Well, let's just pretend that that's what it is, and we won't feel a need to research it any further.
No, I think we're good. Now I know this was something that Sean was very excited to talk about, because we've had like some connection to people that have had masks, and we're constantly talking about like ring gear, and because we always think that that's like some of the coolest stuff that guys wear
yeah.
to the ring. So tell us a little bit about the awesome looking eye patch that you wear to the ring, and who made that and where that came from, because it's pretty badass looking.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that for a little bit. So, I mean, obviously, when you come through the curtain, right, your music hits, you come through the curtain, you're making a first impression the moment that you come through the curtain, right? And it's not always what you're doing in the ring that is kind of part of that first impression that you're going to make with people, right? With an audience member, whether it's an adult, whether it's a kid. So my motto in wrestling these days is I just want to be different, right? I want to present something that someone else is not doing, right? I would rather be different and be myself and fail than, be something that I'm not and succeed in a hollow way, in my opinion, because whatever achievements, whatever success I would get from, pretending to be someone else or pretending to be something else, to me, I feel like that would just feel very hollow. So when I was thinking about my look and like what I wanted to present, the moment that I hit the curtain, what did I want people to see about me? I wanted them to see something that they had never seen before. So I was thinking about like, a lot of people that I've been inspired by in wrestling, people that have mentored me, are people that have worn masks, right? Like the people that have trained me, out of the ROH dojo, like Delirious was my first trainer. Delirious, obviously, a Ring of Honor staple, also came through Chikara and did some stuff there. He always wore a mask, right? And his mask always looked really cool, and it always looked very unique and stood out from other people's stuff. One of my other trainers, Cheeseburger, world famous Cheeseburger, people know him as now. He also kind of adopted that from Delirious, the idea of like wearing a mask, right? Like presenting that as kind of like a first impression to people. So I just thought like, I want to take a similar spirit to what they're presenting to people, but I want to put my own spin on it and do it differently than them.
Gotcha.
So there was this one point, and this was like a while ago. This was like during the pandemic when no one was wrestling. Everyone was at home. Everyone was just kind of put on pause.
Yeah.
That was the time where like, even though it really sucked being trapped at home and not being able to wrestle, I found it to be a great opportunity to really dive into the creative side of wrestling.
Yeah.
Because all the time that I wasn't having to spend on, putting matches together or, coming up with different moves to put in my arsenal, or training like with like the cardio stuff as much to make sure that I was ring ready.
Yeah.
I was focusing more on, character and my personality and my entrance. So there was one point where I remember telling somebody, I was like, I want to come out to the ring kind of like in an eye patch.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, why not? Like, it'll look weird, but it'll also maybe look really cool, because I was thinking about like other people that I had seen wearing eye patches. I was thinking of, like Solid Snake, I think from Metal Gear Solid, right?
Yes.
And how cool that was. Like an eye patch, I don't care who you are. If you put an eye patch on, you are instantly like 2 times cooler than you are.
Right? Pirates are cool.
Yeah, dude, pirates. Yeah, exactly.
There you go. I mean, people love pirates, and pirates are awesome.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking like, all right, can I do this? Can I wear an eye patch? And I was toying with the idea of wearing like like a regular standard eye patch with some kind of like logo on the front. And but I was kind of realizing that like I wanted to wrestle in it. And I was kind of realizing if I'm going to wrestle in this, it's just going to like come off. Like it's going to be moving all over the place. It's not going to be sturdy. It's not going to be in place. So I remember talking to a friend of mine at the time who was a wrestler and who was a graphic designer. And I was asking him to try and help me bring my vision to life.
Okay.
And he had come up with the idea. He was kind of saying, what if we add a little bit more to this eye patch? So there's a little bit more going on here. What if we turn it into kind of like a half mask kind of thing?
Oh, cool.
Right? Like, what if we, in the moment, I would kind of thought about it as almost like Phantom of the Opera style, right? Like half of his face is almost covered. You can't really see what's going on. You can kind of see what's going on in the other half of his face, right? The emotion kind of seeps through there. But I then, he helped me come up with a design, and I took it to somebody who made a lot of masks for people from Chikara.
Mm-hmm.
And he like really worked really hard. We had come up with or looked at some examples of like different eye patch like masks that had been done in wrestling before. Some of them were kind of cool. Some of them were like absolute ugly monstrosities. So we're trying to kind of like come together and come up with like a happy medium. And he put the whole thing together. I'm the one that came up with across where the eye is, the 3 kind of claw scratch marks.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted, not just to have a mask, but I wanted it to align, and I wanted it to be in line with everything else that I was trying to do. Right.
Sure.
I didn't want it to kind of just stick out like a sore thumb. So
yeah.
So that's the story about how that goes. I started off wrestling in it quite a bit. Eventually, I decided to turn it into more of an entrance piece.
Yeah.
For the sake of not having my depth perception being thrown off.
Yeah, right.
So we kind of decided, and also too, like I want people to be able to see my face. I want them to be able to see my full facial expressions, because that really tells a story in any match or in any fight. So eventually, I kind of compromised, and I said I'm going to wear it out, and then eventually, before the match starts, I'll take it off and I'll throw it up, and that's kind of where we're at now. But that's the story of how I came up with that. It was during the pandemic, and it was just kind of my way of trying to put forth something different to make an impactful first impression on people when I come through the curtain.
It definitely adds to the whole look, the entrance, the whole the jacket, the vest, it all comes together, and it's all
absolutely
just a really cool entrance that you came up with. But we had mentioned earlier that we did interview you back at Royal Rumble number 5 last week.
Yep.
Stay tuned for the video; it'll be out soon. But we interviewed you and our boss, the upstanding one, Dylan Mesh.
Sure.
Yeah, that guy.
So talk about kind of how you guys came together as a tag team, and how did you guys come up with the last light concept?
Yeah. So, I mean, Dylan and I are 2 people who have known each other for a very long time. We both started in wrestling almost pretty much at the same time. I think I was like a few months before Dylan kind of had jumped into it. We both were trained from the ground up at the same school. So out of the original Ring of Honor dojo, now known as the Worldwide Dojo, owned by Cheeseburger. So we have spent so many years traveling up and down the roads, logging thousands of miles, whether it's going and helping with a Ring of Honor show, whether it's going to an independent show with Cheeseburger or our trainers to get ourselves out there networking, getting experience, showing up with gear, just hoping to kind of get a match on the show. Dylan and I have been through a lot of the grind together. So we kind of have a bond that has connected us pretty strongly for a long time. Dylan, I think, and I are very similar in the sense that during the pandemic, he also took that time to really try to find himself and to really try and evolve himself. Because when when COVID had kind of started to subside, that is when he presented to the world the upstanding Dylan Mesh that he has now become. And, and also too, I feel like we think very similarly, even though we're different people. He also, I think, wanted to present something different that wasn't being done, right? Like, how many people are you seeing come out to the ring wearing a full suit, like you just walked in from your, 9 to 5 job at the bank, local, or in the local job at the corporate world, and wrestle in that attire? So Dylan also, I feel like he's very creative, and I feel like he also has a good mind for wrestling in regards to putting something out there that someone else is not already doing, right? Like, what gap is there? I think we both notice, like, what's a gap out there that needs to be filled, and how can we fill it, right? That always makes you like more useful. It always makes you more valuable. It makes your stock higher when you are filling a role that nobody else is really occupying or doing the way that you are. So we've been bonded for a long time. However, something that I was kind of starting to notice was, as much as I love being the rabid honey badger and I love inflicting violence and biting people, there are times
Good
where
things to love.
yeah, exactly. There are times when I think you want to play a different role.
Yeah.
And Dylan and I, we were around each other. I was kind of noticing what he was starting to do with, his upstanding persona. I was starting to notice some of the stuff with Dr. Ethan Wilde and some of the, the things that they were kind of doing. And sometimes I have to say, it just feels so good to be bad, to be a dirtbag. I saw that Dylan was doing that, and I was kind of I was looking out at it from afar, and I was kind of saying, I really kind of want to do that too. So I decided that I would throw a tie on myself. I would throw on a pair of, business casual slacks, black slacks. And I decided that we would go out there and try to torture and torment as many people as possible. And make
Oh boy.
So when I'm not being the rabid honey badger, there are times when the honey badger has to go into hibernation for a little while so that I can let the upstanding version of Ryan Mooney shine through alongside the upstanding Dylan Mesh. And we came up with the last light because I feel like people look at us and what Dylan does and they see a dirt bag, but we feel like we're actually doing people a service. Okay. We feel like we are providing a valuable service to people by torturing them, tormenting them. We're making them better.
Okay.
Right. We're challenging them to rise up to the level that we feel that we are at. So we feel like wrestling, and some wrestlers are kind of like lost in darkness.
Okay.
And we really feel like we can kind of bring a light to it that will almost purify it in a way.
Got it. Okay.
So we came up with the last light kind of to signify that, we're a beacon of light in an otherwise dark and dreary wrestling landscape.
Gotcha.
Wow. I've been waiting for you to come on the show because this is we're pulling the curtain back here, but at just about the same time you came up with that idea, I pitched the tag team idea to Dylan and I said, listen, I could dress just like you and then we could call ourselves the Tour of Italy. And then for our finishing move, we could call ourselves Unlimited Soup, Salad, and Breadsticks. That could be our finishing move. But he didn't go for it. I was very disappointed that.
He didn't go for it. I know Dylan fairly well, and while the average person would be enticed, I think, by unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks,
right?
I think Dylan is more of an all-you-can-eat buffet connoisseur.
Gotcha.
As am I. I'm all about quantity and quality,
of course.
But the most important is quantity. As much as I would like unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks, why would I eat that? And why would Dylan eat that? When I could go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and I could just shove my pie hole full of the most intricate delicacies of food.
Yes.
It's definitely not upstanding to limit yourself to those three items.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. One of the things about being upstanding is recognizing when it is time to indulge. Right.
Exactly.
And, Dylan and I feel like have become masters at the art of indulgence. So
awesome. So does that mean that you're an official member of the Wild LLC, or is the Last Light maybe a separate entity from Wild LLC? How does that all fall within the corporate structure?
Well, look, I don't have a corporate business degree, any kind of background like that. I will say that the Last Light, I feel like, is kind of a splintered off branch of Wild LLC. I would say that we are maybe a subsidiary, right? Or maybe a sister company, if you will, sister organization, perhaps. I don't know why I'm not being invited personally to all of the different board meetings of Wild LLC. I feel like my invites are being lost in the mail.
We're in the same boat.
We're in the same boat, man.
It took us months to get into Workday. Like,
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, like you know, I don't know about I don't know anything about my benefits package. I know they're taking money out from my 401k, but I think that's just, for them, not 401k. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not, so I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm not getting the Google Calendar invites. I'm not getting the Zoom links. So maybe I'll have to show up in person to one of the next board meetings so that I can kind of ask some of these questions, because I also want to know what my official role is, and I also want to talk to them about the possibility of a corporate merger at some point.
Yes.
So that way we can do bigger business together.
So then the goal is for you is to be an official member of the Wild LLC. Is that correct?
I would think so. I mean, I think that, talk about filling roles, right? Talk about filling gaps in or filling a void where it exists. I think that Wild LLC is a well-oiled machine. However, I do think that it could stand for a little bit more of controlled chaos, which I feel like I bring to the table in spades.
Right.
So I would very much like to officially be brought into the fold and have the Last Light and Wild LLC engage in a corporate merger. But we'll have to see. Only time will tell.
Right.
There's no plans for a hostile takeover at any point in the near future.
No.
But we'll have to see how things go. The corporate world can be very dog eat dog. It can be very cutthroat. So sometimes you got to be willing to crack a few eggs if you want to make an omelet, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we know for sure that Wild LLC follows this show religiously. They watch everything that we do. So from your mouth to Ethan's ears.
Right.
Yeah. So let's kind of bring it back to the beginning again a little bit, because we want to talk about, some of your favorites. So growing up, you got into wrestling through the video games, which I think is an incredible story.
Yeah, that's definitely something different.
Every wrestling fan loves the video games. Like, it's just they go hand in hand. So being pulled in by that is really interesting. But who were some of your once you kind of really immersed yourself into the world of wrestling, who were some of your favorite wrestlers growing up, or maybe some wrestlers that might have been an inspiration to get into the ring? Who did you enjoy watching?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, my first and foremost wrestling love came via the WWE, right? And I think a lot of people have a similar story or a similar experience. So I've always gravitated more towards people that I could personally relate to or feel like resonated with me on a personal level for one reason or another, right? Like, so Rey Mysterio, I always list as an inspiration to me, in the sense that somebody growing up as a kid, I was always smaller than a lot of the other kids, right? Like sometimes, and kids can be cruel to each other. So growing up in elementary school, even through middle school and high school, I was smaller, right? People knew I was smaller, and I felt like, I was kind of picked on, and I was bullied at times because of that. But I always saw Rey Mysterio never back down from a challenge from anybody, regardless of what the size of that person was, whether they were close in size, whether it was a complete mismatch. He would always put 100% of his heart into it. And there are times where he proved to me, and I think he proved to other people watching, that you can be the smaller guy in the ring. You can take an insurmountable amount of punishment and still find a way to come out victorious, to come out on top. And that was very inspirational to me. And the way that he carried himself by wearing a mask, right? It also made him feel, to me, even though he was small, he felt larger than life.
Yeah.
He felt like a real life superhero to me. So he was a personal inspiration to me. And as I kept going along, I would find myself inspired by people who, were able to captivate the crowd in other ways. So for example, I'm a lifelong fan of Shawn Michaels, because, not because of any specific feat of athleticism or, any particular like move or signature thing that he did, but it was that everything Shawn Michaels did, every time I would see him, always looked so smooth. It looked effortless, right?
Yeah.
Like he looked like he was being put through the ringer, right? And he looked like anytime that he ever came out with a victory, that it was a hard fought victory, right?
Yeah.
It never to me looked like this was easy, right? But it just looked so natural and so organic, and it just looked like poetry in motion in a sense.
Yeah.
I would say. And then, you know, another example of somebody, and I mean, the list is unlimited, but another example of somebody that I personally resonated with a lot was Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
At the time, and you know, I wasn't watching wrestling until about 2006 religiously, so
Okay.
I missed WCW Chris Jericho. I missed, you know, the Y2J era of Chris Jericho. So I saw Chris Jericho when he had come back right after being gone for a while. But what was so interesting about him was his ability to reinvent himself time after time. You know, he knew where the cap was on what he was doing, right?
Yep.
He knew that, oh, I think there's only so much mileage I'm going to get out of Y2J. This current, you know, generation or this current era of wrestling. That's when he changed it up. That's when he started talking very low, very monotonous, started using the big and fancy words, started wearing the suits, you know, punch Shawn Michaels' wife in the face, like all those different things.
Brutal.
No good.
And he had the uncanny ability to make you despise him, right? So all the people that I'm talking about here that were like some of my first inspirations, what the thing that I think ultimately puts them in an elite category is their ability to make you feel something.
Yes.
Because that's what wrestling is supposed to do, first and foremost. It's supposed to elicit an emotional reaction from people, right? Rey Mysterio elicited an emotional reaction in me, right? It was a feeling of hope. It was a feeling of inspiration. Chris Jericho elicited an emotional reaction in me. It was a feeling of disgust, a feeling of betrayal, a feeling of, you know, just hatred, burning hatred. So I really was inspired by a lot of those people for those reasons. But the thing that made me decide to officially try to throw my name in the hat to become a professional wrestler, to toss my name into the ring, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, was I went to the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, the old ECW arena, right? An arena with so much history in wrestling, with a lot of different places having occupied that space. But I went to see a Ring of Honor pay-per-view in 2015. It was their final battle pay-per-view, their biggest pay-per-view, one of their arguably the biggest one of the year, right? The end of the year. And I saw that night what I considered at the time to be the best wrestling on the planet that I had seen, right? The tagline of Ring of Honor at the time was the best wrestling on the planet, right? Like that's what it was. And, you know, people use slogans, people use catchphrases, people use fancy taglines all the time to try to get people invested, to try to garner interest. But what I saw was closest to what I would have considered to be the best wrestling on the planet.
Right.
And I saw the main event of that show, which was Jay Lethal versus AJ Styles for the Ring of Honor.
Wow.
Yes.
It was very soon, very close to where AJ Styles was about to jump to WWE.
Yes.
Right. And I saw that match and I felt something in my blood, in my bones that night, where I had this feeling and I couldn't really put words to it, but it was that feeling of, I feel like I can do this.
Yeah.
I feel like not only can I do this, I feel like I could do this well, and I feel like I could do this at a high level. So that's when that whole like starting to research schools started coming up, right? And that was really what hooked me. So the WWE, TNA, like all these people that were inspirations to me, they did a good job of inspiring me. But what hooked me ultimately was Ring of Honor and what they were providing to professional wrestling. And that really resonated with me. And that just made me have that feeling of, I need to be a part of this.
Right.
It's interesting the names that you bring up, because you talk about like Rey Mysterio, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, 3 guys who in different ways were so good at reinventing themselves over the years. But you also look at, you're talking about Ring of Honor, you're talking about the best wrestling in the world, and those 3 guys that you also named not only were known for what they did outside the ring and how they presented themselves, but they also were really technically sound in the ring. You know, they all had great in-game, in-ring work. Absolutely. So it's interesting how you kind of pulled all that together.
And that's, I think too, I mean, I think that just goes to kind of show, or it serves to reinforce the point that professional wrestling is one of the most beautiful art forms in the entire world, because it takes elements from every single other form of entertainment and stirs it all up and puts it in a stew and mixes it all up into one beautiful concoction, right? That can't be replicated anywhere else, right?
Yes.
You like music, professional wrestling is for you. You like feats of athleticism, right? And, you know, just combat sports related presentation. Professional wrestling has that for you. You like larger than life personalities, theatrics, and characters. Professional wrestling has that for you. You like comedy. Professional wrestling has that for you. So professional wrestling, in my opinion, is a language that everyone can speak, right? And I feel like it's a universal language that everybody can learn and everybody can kind of appreciate. I had a teacher in high school, a music teacher. I was taking a class in high school about the history of like hard rock, right? And it was focusing on educating us on like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and like all the bands that really kind of helped to mold the hard rock genre, right, from the foundational level. And my teacher told me that music was a universal language that we all speak. Yes. And I agreed with that. And that's one thing that I've never forgotten. And I've carried with me to this day. But I would use that analogy and apply it to professional wrestling and say that professional wrestling is a universal language that everyone can speak.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Love it.
Going back to Ring of Honor, you mentioned earlier how you trained at the Ring of Honor dojo, but talk about what was it like to train under the likes of Delirious, Cheeseburger, Wolf Ferrara, and also Sumi Sakai. Like, that must have been a crazy experience to be able to train under such names as those 4 people.
Yeah, my wrestling career has been really interesting in the sense that I almost feel like things have gone like backwards.
Oh,
like,
yeah?
It's like almost in the sense that like normally the way that the trajectory of one's career kind of goes, usually start at the independent level, work your way up towards kind of being in and around a television environment, right? I was kind of spoiled in a way in the sense that I was afforded the opportunity to train with some of the best people to be doing it at the time. Some of the best minds in the business, you know, that were in and around the business. And I was also just like, I was surrounded by a wealth of knowledge so early on. I think at times to the point where I didn't know exactly what to do with all of it. Right. Like I was, you know, trained by Delirious, trained by Cheeseburger, Will Ferrara, Sumi Sakai. Like when I would be at the Ring of Honor shows, I would be around the Briscoes and I'd be around Dalton Diesel, and I would be around Cody Rhodes, which was crazy.
Wow.
You know, a guy that I was watching on television when I was growing up as a kid into a teenager, right? Like I was exposed to so much knowledge, right? At such an early point in my career that I feel like it helped accelerate my development as a wrestler.
Right.
So, it's so weird. I sometimes think it's like a blessing and a curse, the way things kind of started out, because it almost kind of like started out with some of those highs that maybe I wasn't ready to experience at the time, right? Some of those bigger opportunities on a larger platform, right? And now that I've kind of figured myself out more, I've kind of refined myself, my character, my in-ring style. Now I feel like I'm at a point where I am ready to take advantage of opportunities like that. And now I'm kind of trying to work towards that maybe happening for me again in the future. Right. But it was such a blessing to be around all of those amazing wrestling minds, right? I got such a great foundation for professional wrestling. I don't think that I would be nearly the person that I am and the wrestler that I am now if I didn't end up starting where I started. I, in hindsight, can't imagine my career starting in a different place other than the Ring of Honor dojo. And it almost didn't happen that way too, which is crazy.
Okay.
I was at the time, I was looking for schools. It was like the summer of 2016. The Ring of Honor dojo was not accepting new students at that time.
Oh, okay.
The school was still like training, already established wrestlers and advanced wrestlers, but they weren't training people from scratch anymore at that point. They were on like a hiatus. Okay. So I almost went to another school. I was looking around, and then I remember looking online one day, and the Ring of Honor website had announced Ring of Honor dojo opens up newest class since 2012, whatever.
Wow. Okay.
It's gonna be a new class. It was also slated to start on my birthday.
Oh,
right, my 21st birthday, and I'm not an overly spiritual person. I don't really believe in fate or anything like that, but it's one of those moments in life that really, really felt closest to an aligning of the stars, right? Where it's feels like a universal sign, right? That this is where I'm supposed to be. And it didn't happen. It almost didn't happen at the time too, as well, because this is a story I tell a lot because it's important for people to know what almost stopped me from going into wrestling, and why that didn't stop me is my mother, who is my biggest supporter, and has always had my back since day one, especially in the wrestling business, even when she's afraid that I'm going to hurt myself or hurt somebody else. She's always supportive no matter what. At the time, she was going through some pretty serious health complications. She had been diagnosed with breast cancer over that stuff. And, we were kind of talking about how she was going to have to go through chemotherapy, and she was going to, all of those responsibilities that she would normally, fill as a mother. She was not going to be able to be doing those things as much anymore, because she was going to have to be taking care of herself and making sure that she was healthy and getting back on her feet. Yeah. So I kind of told her, I was like, Mom, I know that we were talking about me doing this wrestling thing, but with everything that's going on with you, it might be better if I was staying around, more homebound, so that I could help pick up some of the slack while you're going through treatment. And, she was going through a chronic illness at the time, like a debilitating disease. And in that situation, she would have been well within her right to say, I could really use your help around the house. I could really, it would really be nice for you to put this off, for a while, for you to stay around and help me. And what she said to me was, this happening to me and to our family is more of a reason why you should do it than anything else could be. Right? Because life is so unpredictable. Yeah. Life is so chaotic. There are no guarantees in life, obviously, except for death and taxes, right? For every single one of us. Of course. But anything could happen at any time. And her, coming down and being stricken with cancer was an example of that. So she said to me, you need to go and chase that dream right now. This is what you need. Wow. This is what our family needs. If you don't do this now, you might never, ever do it. And those were the words that solidified for me. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go put my all into this. I'm going to give this 110%. And I'm not going to look back. And that's kind of what happened, and the rest was history. So everything that I have done in wrestling, every opportunity, every connection that I have made, every lifelong friendship or relationship that I will carry with me for the rest of my life now, all of that I owe to my mother because of the decision and the choice that she made that day.
What an incredible story. That's amazing to hear. That's really cool to hear.
I love telling that story. And it gets real, and it gets raw, and it's emotional, and it is peeling back the curtain a little bit, but it's important for me. I'm a big believer that it's important for us to practice and express gratitude
Yeah, of
in
course.
life on a daily
Mhm.
basis, right? Like things that they say that can be helpful is like you wake up or, before you go to bed or when you wake up, like you just express 3 things that you're grateful for about your life, despite the challenges and despite some of the things that suck and
Yeah.
weigh us down, right? There are always things that you can look at to be grateful for, right? To adjust your mindset, to reframe things. So I'm a big believer in trying to find gratitude, and all of the
Mhm.
things that I've done in wrestling, like never would have happened without somebody else giving me the opportunity to do it, right? And that's something that I'll be eternally grateful for forever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What a great life lesson. Just being grateful for everything you have and every opportunity you're given, no matter who gives you that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. So on your social media, you mentioned that you have been to a number of seminars, and looking at the list of seminars that you've been to, I mean, it is, first off, it's like an indies who's who.
I was saying it's a who's who of wrestling.
Yeah, and then you look at some of the names that have gone on to do great things on television. So talk about some of maybe your favorite seminars that you've been to, and maybe how some of them have differed from each other.
Sure. I'm a big believer that wrestling is, and in life in general, but especially in wrestling, you're a perpetual learner. You're a lifelong learner. You're never going to stop learning. If you feel like you've gotten to the point where you've learned everything there is to know or everything there is to be learned, then I feel like you have royally messed up and you need to reevaluate your path and your journey. There's always going to be something else to add to your toolbox or something to learn. And I very much I'm a seeker of knowledge, right? I've always wanted to be around people that I know more than I do about wrestling, because they can help, because that knowledge, like every single thing that somebody has to teach you, maybe not all of it is going to be helpful for you on an individual level, right? But if you go and train with this person and you go and talk to this person and you pick and choose things from each person, you have now created a whole new skill set, a whole new tool set for yourself that's going to be helpful for you. And I have had the pleasure of training under some of the best to be doing it right now. A lot of them are currently like on TV right now. I've trained under Orange Cassidy. I've trained under, let's see, I trained under Drew Gulak when he was coming to school. Obviously now, over at Catch Point, Drew had his school. I've trained under Tracy Williams, right? Another Catch Point, head coach. Like there's been so many of them. I've trained under, I've done promo seminars with Ian Riccaboni.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's very cool. Ian has a great mind for wrestling. He, he's able to talk about things from the marketing perspective, right? And Ian and I were around each other a lot in Ring of Honor, and I always found him to be very helpful and very kind and very generous with his time to me. So, doing a promo seminar with him was great. Last year, I did a promo seminar with Gabe Sapolsky.
Oh, nice.
Very
wow.
Cool. Yeah.
He currently works for WWE, and it was a wonderful experience because Gabe really showed us a lot of ways that we can take what we're already doing with our promos and just make adjustments and tweaks to make them that much more impactful and that much more, beneficial to what we're trying to do, right? The service that we're trying to provide, or, just making our promos serve us better or serve our cause better. So I've done that, and there's been a litany of other ones. I've trained under Jonathan Gresham. I've done seminars with him. I hate listing names at all because I know I've left a million people.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I have had the pleasure of being around so many people and picking so many people's brains, sitting under the learning tree of so many great minds in wrestling. So many different perspectives. I'm not talking about I'm talking about other learning trees. But and I'm not going to stop anytime soon, right? I'm always going to be out there looking for more knowledge, looking for that next bit of information that I can use to help me push further towards my goals. So that's advice, and that's something that I think everybody who's in wrestling, whether you're in the ring, whether you're on the outside of the ring and you have a different role, like you should always be trying to go above and beyond to learn as much as you can from whoever you can.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes people forget, the garden of learning has many trees, and anytime you have a chance to sit under one and learn, you've got to take it.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning and training and doing things, I was very curious to ask you about this. So, when and where did you learn the art of, and I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher this, Tang So Do karate, and do you apply that to your wrestling style?
Yeah. So, growing up when I was a kid, my parents, because obviously when you're a kid, you can't be a professional wrestler.
No.
My parents, I was like, mom and dad, I want to be a professional wrestler. Like,
right.
well, you can't do that. You're a child. Like, there are no children. So my parents wanted me to still be active and wanted me to be involved in sports as a kid. And I tried sports a little bit. I tried soccer and I did that, but it didn't really resonate with me. It didn't hook me. I really found an interest and a passion for martial arts. I found that to be something that really hooked me and engaged me. So I tried, I did karate, did martial arts. I did, the discipline itself was called Tang Sudo at the time. It was a combination of.
I was close.
You were close. It's okay. People butcher the name all the time. It's going to happen. But it's a combination of, I believe, Korean martial art practices as well as basic fundamental jujitsu principles. So we would do, like basic kind of karate strikes, but we would also do a little bit of like padded Muay Thai kickboxing. We would do a little bit of grappling on the mat, like, with some basic jujitsu techniques and skills. And also the selling point for me that I think my parents kind of used to trick me into doing it was they told me, well, like Chuck Norris actually trained in martial art. Don't you want to be like Chuck Norris? Don't you want to train in the same discipline as Chuck Norris? And I was at the time, I was like, well, Chuck Norris is a complete badass. Chuck Norris, remember all those Chuck Norris jokes where it was just like,
oh yeah, I do. Amazing.
Chuck Norris is so tough that underneath his chin, underneath his beard, there's no chin. It's just another fist. So I think my parents kind of like swayed me and persuaded me a little bit by kind of using that as like a selling point. But I did it, and it was really helpful for me because when I was a kid, like I was talking about with being short and, also as a kid, like I was a heavier kid. So I had a little bit of, like weight insecurities. So I wasn't really confident in myself. But when I did martial arts, when I did Tang Sudo, that really was something that I found that I was good at it, right? It increased my confidence and my self-esteem. So it also, it helped kind of, solidify like my character, right? Like me as a person, as a human being, it helped me evolve and develop. So that's really the reason why I ended up doing that. I've brought some principles from that. Some things have carried over into wrestling. I did the martial arts for about 7 years. I did it from about age of 6 to 13. So I ended up getting to the point where I got my junior black belt, right? You can only get junior black belt. I think it was like 16. Before 16, you only got junior black belt. You weren't old enough yet. So I did it for about 7 years. And when I started wrestling, I noticed that a lot of those like foundational instincts started coming back, right? Like when I was going to throw a kick or when I was going to throw a strike, I kind of felt that my body remembered how to do some of those basic techniques that we were practicing over and over and drilling again in my Tang Sudo classes. And, you know, it's one of my life regrets that I actually stopped doing Tang Soo Do when I was a kid. 'Cause I became a teenager. Teenagers are all hormonal and
Right.
emotional. I started
Yes.
keeping the opinion
Yeah.
that anybody that likes to actually do things or participate in things is dumb. And
Right.
extracurricular activities are stupid, so I'm not going to do anything. Then when I became an adult, I was like, oh crap, I should have been doing stuff this entire time. Right. I could have been, it's like all that thing of like, I could have done this, I could have done this, I could have done this. So about 3 years ago, when I was 2021, I decided to take up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a new
nice.
skill. So I have been training consistently in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for almost the past 3 years. And at this point, I'm sitting at the blue belt level, and I'm working towards eventually, hopefully within the next year, maybe getting towards purple.
Nice.
So I try to take things from my athletic background, however limited it may be. I try to pull things from, you know, karate as a kid. I try to pull things from my jiu-jitsu practices now, and try to figure out what can I take from that and use in my wrestling that other people maybe aren't going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Yeah, you mentioned Chuck Norris. I heard that one time Chuck Norris took an introductory class in karate, and by the end of class, karate got a black belt. So, yeah,
I don't know what Chuck Norris is up to these days, but you know, I feel like I'm at least a little bit more prepared to take him on wherever he may be. So, you know, Chuck Norris, if you're listening to this podcast, if you ever listen to this podcast, I would be happy to meet you anywhere, anytime, and, you know, take you down to the ground and submit you with some jiu-jitsu techniques and submission holds.
That is the Mooney Martial Arts Open Challenge right there. We're putting it out there.
Good. That's good for branding purposes. You know, I know Chuck Norris is really tough, but I don't know what his ground.
He was a Texas Ranger.
Right. He was a Texas Ranger, but I don't know what his ground game is like. So if we're standing fight, he probably kicks the crap out of me. But if I can somehow find a way to get us onto the ground, where honey badgers are usually more, you know, honey badgers are usually more comfortable. They're at home on the ground. Then I feel like I can, you know, inflict him on him, inject him with a little bit of rabies, and maybe, you know, So,
well, you got to watch yourself, because I mean, he's so tough. He might be the only guy that has a ground game while still standing. So, you got to watch yourself.
Well, and he may be the only human being on this planet that actually is immune to rabies.
Ooh. He may be the only person on the planet that you fight him, he gives you rabies.
Yeah, yes.
Exactly. He drinks rabies for breakfast with his eggs and bacon.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I believe it.
All right. So let me ask you, who has been maybe some people that you've really enjoyed working in the ring with, and is there one person maybe that you haven't worked with yet that you'd like to?
Some of my favorite wrestling experiences have been with people that I share a personal connection with. Okay. Now, that is not that's not the be all end all, but I would say I'll give you a short list. Myself, every time I get in the ring with Cheeseburger, I feel like he and I mesh very well together. I feel like we are perfect opponents for each other. We have wrestled each other over the years, from the time where I was a newbie to this point, where we are both, in my opinion, the best versions of ourselves that we have ever been.
Right.
And we have wrestled each other in traditional wrestling matches. We have fought each other in no ring matches, you know, outside of patio, outside a bar in West Philadelphia. Every time that he and I get in the ring together, or get into a fight pit of some sort, or whatever environment we're going to be in where we're going to throw down, I always feel like we make each other better. And I always feel like we create something that people are going to be able to sink their teeth into. So Cheeseburger and I feel like as long as we are both in wrestling and actively wrestling, I want us to continue from time to time to wrestle each other, because I feel like we can be a litmus test for each other, to test where our abilities are at, right? Test what level we're at. Another person that I will put over and that I will plug until the cows come home is the person that I ended up wrestling at the Labor of Love show for Vlad, and that was
Yes.
Eli Isom.
Mhm.
Eli Isom and I, too, for people that don't know, also trained together from the ground up out of the Ring of Honor dojo. So we are lifelong friends, lifelong brothers, bonded and
Love that.
forged in fire
Yeah.
together, through that Ring of Honor system and those experiences, swimming together in those very deep waters. And every time that he and I wrestle each other, again, I feel like we make each other better. I feel like we bring
Right.
each other up a level. So I want to continue to wrestle both of those guys as two of my best friends in wrestling, because I know that we're going to continue to push each other towards being the best that we can be. In addition to that, I've also had the opportunity to, something that is really cool about my career is I've had the opportunity to wrestle every single person that had a hand in training me.
Oh, very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I've
that's really cool.
wrestled Will Ferrara multiple times in Ring of Honor. I've wrestled Cheeseburger multiple times, some in Ring of Honor and some outside of Ring of Honor. Eli Isom, the same could be said, as the person that was coming up with me, like my training partner. But I also had the pleasure a couple years back of wrestling Delirious
Oh,
in a
awesome.
match, and
Yeah.
that I will say too, that was I don't feel typically very nervous for matches or fights these days, but I will say, as somebody who mentored me, who nurtured me, who helped me, jump into this wacky, wild world of wrestling, I
Yeah.
felt nervous about having to fight the guy who was basically like my sensei, my master, and we went in there, we beat the hell out of each other, and I also beat him. Too.
Nice.
So
A
I'm
little plus, little
undefeated.
bonus.
I'm undefeated against Delirious right now. If we were to rematch, I don't know if the same could still be said.
Right.
But as of right now, I'm undefeated against him. So those matches are very near and dear to my heart for personal reasons, but also for professional reasons, because I feel like in each of those matches, it tells a story of how I'm developing and turning into the best version of myself. So
Right.
those are guys that I'll mix it up with anytime, anywhere. I don't care if it's in front of fans. I don't care if it's on the street in West Philadelphia, anywhere else for that matter. I'll do it anytime, anywhere. And I want to do it until I'm no longer wrestling anymore. So
Right.
Love it.
So one last question before we get to your main event topic. We ask everybody this question because everyone has their own stance on it, but we also love it because it gives them a really raw answer. So what does pro wrestling personally mean to you, and what is the significance that's had on your life?
Oh, wow. That's just a real, real easy question, right? To go out to people spontaneously, but what does it mean to me? I would say wrestling has instilled in me a sense of hope in times where life felt like it was completely shrouded in darkness. Wrestling has always been there for me in some way, shape, or form throughout every single trial and tribulation and every challenge or speed bump that my life has taken on my path, on this road that I'm on. From a very young age, it was with me throughout the divorce of my parents.
Oh, wow.
At a very young age. Around that time, too, I had experienced the death of a family member for the first time when my aunt, my mom's younger sister, who was only 30 years old at the time, had unfortunately passed away due to cancer herself. And this is the time, I'm only 5 or 6 years old at the time that all of these things are happening. My world is turning upside down. But professional wrestling was always there as an outlet for me to process and to kind of express my emotions through what was being seen on television, right? I was able to escape from reality, escape just temporarily from all the awful stuff that was going on in my life throughout certain periods, of my lifespan. I was able to escape into a world where magic was real and anything was possible, right? Like I said earlier, where the smallest guy could get beat up and come out on top if he just believed in himself hard enough, right? If he just fought hard enough. Wrestling has instilled in me a sense of hope that no matter what happens in life, things will continue to move forward. Things will continue to be okay. Just like wrestling will always be there in some way, shape, or form, right? Things will always be okay, right? No matter who the champion is, no matter who's on top, right? Like things will be okay. And that's a feeling that wrestling has given me. It's given me a feeling of safety and security in times where life has felt unstable and unpredictable. It's almost been like a metaphorical security blanket or safety blanket in some of those difficult times. And it's motivated me and it's pushed me to try to keep being the best version of myself. And it's all about the journey too, man. You know, like the way that I was something that I was told from a very early start in wrestling that I keep that I keep thinking about all the time now is that wrestling is like listening to a song, right? Like your wrestling journey is like listening to a song. Nobody ever listens to a song to skip all the way to the end and hear the final note.
Right.
You want to follow the story, follow the rhythm, follow each individual note and experience the song all the way through from beginning to end, right? And that's the way that I was told to think about wrestling is don't worry about what that final note is going to look like. Just focus on where you are right now and what note is being played right now, right? So that was a little bit of a few different answers kind of combined into one.
No, that was perfect.
Those are all the things that wrestling has kind of given to me, has given to my life, has added to my life in a positive way.
Absolutely.
I always love when we ask this question because we get these sort of, profound and, introspective answers where we get to see that like professional wrestling is so much more to people than just what goes on in the ring. It is a life-changing thing. Even being involved in it in any small part, be it a fan, be it, wrestling changes people's lives for the better. And I love that, like your answer just completely exemplified that. So yeah, excellent answer.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to go with that, but
right.
At first I was a little nervous. I was like, oh God, they're going to ask me to talk about wrestling. I was like, what am I going to say? But that really just came out naturally and organically. So I appreciate you guys giving me the platform to express that because I feel like that's part of that gratitude piece, right? That's what I'm grateful for that wrestling has contributed to my life.
Of course.
Well, you definitely nailed it. All right, great interview. Amazing getting to learn a little bit more about you, getting to know you, getting to introduce you to our Opinion City listeners and watchers out there. With that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we are coming back with our main event top 5, which today is top 5 albums. And we're super excited.
Can't wait
about that. So we will see you in a few moments.
All right, we are back with the Rabid Honey Badger himself, and we are going to talk about top 5 albums, which I'm excited because I love music. We mentioned it throughout the show. I'm a huge lover of music. I think it's crazy how much music and wrestling tie in together. So I'm super excited about this top 5 list and see where it goes.
Absolutely.
I like the way that you described that. That is exactly the way I felt about it. And that was when I was trying to come up with one of these top 5s. I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to talk about? Right. And I was like, do I want to do top 5 movies? Do I want to do top 5 television shows? But I was also like, you can't have professional wrestling without music. The two they go hand in hand, right? Like how can you would it be if somebody came through the curtain without music?
Right. It's awkward.
Yeah, it certainly is.
The music tells the story, right?
Yeah.
It helps tell
Yeah.
that story. So I wanted to talk about today what my top 5 albums, musical albums are. Now, I am not in any way, shape, or form saying these are the best 5 albums of all time.
But they
However,
are your opinion. We are at Opinion City, so
it's my opinion,
yes.
and
right.
I declare that if your opinion does not match with mine, then you are wrong.
Right.
Yes, you're entitled to your opinion, and you're also entitled to be wrong. Is what I always say.
Correct.
So we're gonna do top 5 albums. Now, I have also attempted. I was thinking about not doing this. I've attempted to rank these in order.
Okay. All right.
I was going to just kind of spitball it, but I did some research ahead of time, and I tried to put this in a top 5 order. I also have a few honorable mentions.
Okay.
I love honorable
Great.
mentions.
Love that.
I'm the
Love
one
that.
that always brings up honorable
love
mentions.
that.
I love
Great.
it. Yes.
Let's start the list with number 5. So these are all albums that I feel like have kind of really added something to my life at a certain point that was kind of crucial to my development.
Mhm.
I'm going to start with number 5. I'm going to start with Good AM by Mac Miller.
Oh wow. Okay.
Released
Hot
in
start.
2015. Now this was really difficult because I wanted to cheat and just say all of Mac Miller's entire discography.
Right.
Lots of movies with the sound off, Macadelic, right? Swimming, Circles. I wanted to do all of it. But I was trying to play by the rules, and I tried to whittle it down to, which album did I really feel like connected most with me. And I kind of went based on that. The criteria I used is, the album that has the most songs that I could just listen to on repeat over and over again and sick of, right? So, Good AM, you're talking about some really awesome songs that I like called Brand Name, Break the Law, right? You've got Ascension, you've got ROS, right? And, there's more even beyond that, right? Jump is another good one. But I love Mac Miller. I'm not too big into rap, but there are a few select rappers that really click with me. It's unfortunate I never really listened to Mac Miller stuff until after post his death, his passing.
Right, after passed away, right.
Posthumously is the word that I was trying to.
Yes.
And for some reason, I wasn't able to think of it in the moment. But yeah, during that period of time in 2020 with COVID, I started listening to all of Mac Miller's discography kind of in one just summer-long sweep. And it was amazing. And it was one of those things where I was kicking myself afterwards. I was like, why did I never listen to this stuff before?
Right.
Why was I not open to this? So Mac Miller, definitely one of my favorite rappers. I just love what he does with words and how he tells stories in his songs. So I'm going to go with Good AM. But you honestly, in my opinion, you can't go wrong with any of his albums that he has put out. I just think there is something in every single one of those albums to enjoy.
You said something really interesting there. You said that, you felt kind of bad that you didn't get into it, before you did. And one of the things I've always found out about music, because I'm a lifelong music fan. I play all kinds of instruments. Like, I'm just all about music. And I find that music will find you at the time in your life when it needs to find you.
Absolutely.
Like you discover things at the exact moment that you really need to discover that kind of music. When you find somebody like Mac Miller that, it's a vibe, and it's where you can sit down and you can just listen from beginning to end and just really click with it and really vibe. Like that's something personal between you and the artist, and it comes to you exactly when you need it.
I think that what you're saying rings very true. And I think that crosses over to a lot of other things in life. Like, for example, the first time you see a movie or the first time you see a television show, right? I've noticed that a lot. Like, even if it's things that I feel like I wish I had watched when I was like earlier in my life, I kind of noticed that what I'm getting out of it now as I'm seeing it for the first time is very relevant to what my current life experiences are. And I think that it's kind of weird how things kind of match up kind of the way that they need to, right? Based on what your needs are in that moment or that period of your life.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna do that's gonna be number 5.
Awesome.
So it was hard to put Mac Miller
Right.
all the way down at number 5, but we had to do it because some of these other ones I just couldn't rank them any lower.
Yeah.
For number 4, okay, this also has a wrestling connection to it.
Okay.
We're gonna go with the album Vivid from 1988 by Living Color.
Oh, right.
And that is famous
Yes.
for the song Cult of Personality,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, CM Punk's
The
theme.
one CM Punk. I don't know if people have heard of them or not. You may have heard CM Punk a time or two.
I mean, sure.
Right. But what I love about wrestling is that it can expose you to so many other things that exist outside of wrestling. So I'll be honest with you. I never heard a song from this band, Living Color, until CM Punk used that song, Cult of Personality, as his theme song. But once I found out about that, I went CM Punk made me interested enough to go and check out this band's music, their discography. Yeah. I listened to this album Vivid that Cult of Personality is on. And there are so many other good songs on there that I think a couple of them I think you can even put up there with Cult of Personality in terms of quality. Right. So some other great songs on there that I like. Middleman is a great one that I really like. Which Way to America, Open Letter to a Landlord is really good. Glamour Boys. And I love some of these songs too, because what they're talking about in these songs, it just feels like there's so much soul to it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like you feel like they're talking about, some of these socio-cultural or socio-political issues that are kind of going on or being felt by, maybe the population that is most resonating with that music.
Right.
Right. So I would put Vivid up there as an album that, almost from beginning to end is almost perfect. Like nothing is really perfect in life, but to me, it's almost a perfect album from beginning to end. So I'm going to put Vivid. And also, of course, it's awesome that it's found its way, bridging that connection from music to wrestling as well.
Yeah.
That, another thing, came along at a time in my life when I was impressionable. I was trying to figure out who I was, and that was part of that journey. So I'm going to put Vivid as number 4.
Yeah. Awesome. And I feel like, I don't know if this has ever been said out loud, but I feel like In Living Color was Rage Against the Machine before Rage Against the Machine became a thing. Like they sort of had sort of the same beliefs, sort of the same mindset. They were kind of like the rebels, trying to rebel against politics and all that stuff. But that was before Rage Against the Machine became big. They were sort of like the filler before they came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that whole song, Cult of Personality, even though we attribute it as wrestling fans to CM Punk, that whole Cult of Personality song, is kind of, a reflection and, a kind of an honest dialogue about political figures and political leaders and stuff like that. Right. So, I think that definitely you could say Rage Against the Machine and Living Color. I could say definitely, I feel like they're trying to accomplish the same goal.
Yeah.
And they're definitely bands that when you listen to them, you can feel the passion in their music about what they're singing about, because it's very real to them. And I think that's when you hear that, you listen to a song on the radio and it's just somebody singing about whatever. But when you listen to somebody who's really singing about something that they're passionate about, it affects the entire music.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to put Vivid at number 4. Now for number 3, this one goes a little bit back closer to childhood, which I will explain a little bit more in depth, but I'm going to go with You Don't Mess Around with Jim by Jim Croce from 1972.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow. All right.
Now this is, it's for me, I consider it to be a throwback, but my dad, growing up, I remember as he was driving me along all the time, driving me to school or driving me wherever in his big white van. He would always be playing CDs from his CD collection, putting it into his stereo, his car radio. And I was listening to Jim Croce from a very early age, right? Before, I was even 10 years old, before I was in double digits. And Jim Croce just has this beautiful way of, you know, the way in which he plays the acoustic guitar while he
Yes.
is telling these stories with the lyrics and with the words that are coming out of his mouth. I just find it to be so peaceful and so tranquil. And this
Yes.
album in particular has some of my favorite Jim Croce songs on it, right? You've got you know, New York Is Not My Home, which is an underrated one in my opinion. You've got Walking Back to Georgia, right? There
Yes.
there
Yes.
are a bunch of other ones on here that I really like. Jim Croce is a personal favorite of mine. It's something that I listen to whenever I, you know, want to feel a good vibe, right? To kind of
Right.
make a connection back to Mac Miller, right?
Yes.
A good vibe, but in a different way. Even if it's like him singing about something that's sad, I'm still like, I still feel good listening to it.
Right. Right.
Like it feels good to
Mhm.
listen to somebody talking about something that happened in their life that was sad for them, right? Because, you know, like maybe you can resonate with that. Maybe you can
Yeah.
bridge a personal connection to what that person is saying, right? Or even if it's not the same situation, maybe you felt a similar emotion at
Mhm.
times in your own life. So I'm gonna say, You Don't Mess Around with Jim, 1972, Jim Croce, one of those like tragic, like, you know, gone too soon
Mhm.
figure. Well,
Yes.
I think
Yes.
passed at the age of, I think, like 30 years old, I think as well, or close to it.
Mhm.
So that is definitely a tragedy, but I'll hold Jim Croce close to my heart all the time.
So
Mhm.
that's an interesting pick. So I listen to Sirius XM a lot, and they have a channel on there called The Bridge, and it's
Yep.
all 70s soft classic rock.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, Jim Croce. So you're talking like mid 60s to like early 70s. And this album was 1972. So this was right
Mhm.
around, you know, the very close to his passing and things like
Right.
that. And it's such that 70s vibe, that
Yes.
just kind of
Yes.
soft classic rock. Like, and I don't care what anybody says. It is a very chilling and calming sort of vibe. Like you just, I don't know, you kind of lose yourself in the vibe of the music. And I love that so much. And I think that Jim Croce encompasses all of that in
Absolutely.
his music. I think it really kind of helps bring that 70s vibe out, and it's fun, chill music to just kind of, you know, lose yourself in.
Yeah, it's one of those like artists and singers that I can just listen to it and I think to myself like he's singing about life. Like
Yeah.
that's it. He's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
singing about those things that happen to all of us in our lives, whether it's
Mhm.
a newfound love, right? A lost love, right? You know, like
Mhm.
these things that we can all relate to, that all of us have maybe experienced in some way, shape, or
Mhm.
form. He's just talking about life, and it's nice to hear somebody kind of talk about it in a way that can uplift you.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
he's singing about a simpler time in life,
That
because
too.
that's what
That
it
too.
was. It was a simpler time in life, a time that some of us, I think, could really, you know, do well with, you know, enjoying a simpler time in life. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of, that's part of the magic that pulls you into his singing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on to number 2.
Number 2.
This one, this is a personal favorite of mine, and I really, between this and number 1, it was a struggle to figure out which one was gonna go which,
Mhm.
which one was gonna go where. I'm gonna go with, and I also made sure to put on this list too. I didn't do any repeats, so no,
Right.
like not 2 albums from the same
Right.
band. I had to kind
Gotcha.
of go
Gotcha.
through and be like, if this is gonna be a band that's on my list here, what's the best album that I feel
Did
like
his
they
homework. Did his
Mhm.
homework.
Yeah.
So I had decided to do Nirvana's MTV Unplugged album.
Oh, such a
Yes.
great album. Amazing
Such a good
choice.
pick.
You
Amazing
know,
choice.
you've got some of
Ugh.
the best Nirvana songs across
Yes.
a plethora of different albums, as well as Kurt Cobain doing a beautifully haunting cover of other people's songs,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
As
Yes.
well, right? Like doing Lake of Fire with Meat Puppets, right?
Mhm.
And doing Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Like,
Oh, listen, where
Yes.
did where did you sleep last night? The end of that Nirvana Unplugged show, where they're still on stage and they're still singing and the credits are rolling. Like, where did you sleep last night might be my favorite song that Nirvana has ever done. It's so good.
It's such an amazing song.
Oh,
Yeah.
so amazing.
And it's such a different take on the Nirvana style, because
It felt very
if you
raw.
listen to Nevermind or Bleach or In Utero or any of those other albums, right? You
Yes.
listen to that and it's got this grungy, like thrashing style, this angry style of, you know, communicating these stories or communicating these messages. And I love that too. I love the way
Yeah.
that we do that in all those other albums. Like, for example, like In Utero, which is an honorable mention that I put on here. In
Okay.
Utero is like, in my opinion, as far as what that band I think was trying to accomplish, like artistically, I think In Utero was about as close to the perfect, you know, alignment of their vision as they had put out.
Right.
Right.
I think it was like completely what they had wanted to do, like artistically, but just the way that they do the songs acoustically, right? The way that they take some of these angry, right, these angrily projected songs, and they just provide this beautifully haunting acoustic spin on it.
Yeah.
I just can't get over that, right?
just-
Like,
As
It's-
a band, they felt raw, but that Unplugged specifically felt like a pure, raw, unedited version of Nirvana, just giving you all of their emotions, all of their feelings in a amazingly like closed circuit live show.
It was a very different Unplugged than a lot of other Unplugged
Yeah.
shows, because, you know, they did the acoustic, but they were also acoustic amplified. So
Yes.
as opposed to like taking a band and just playing their stuff acoustic like other bands had done, you know, they took the acoustic sound and amplified it. So it made it seem so much like Nirvana, yet being so much different. You had Dave Grohl playing with brushes. Like the whole thing, just the feel of it. And there is just this iconic image of Kurt Cobain sitting there and playing and wearing the sweater. And like, it's the whole thing is just a feel. It's like, you know, how you think about something and you get like this warm feeling in your heart. They made that warm feeling. They through everything they did, through the set, the clothes, the music. They made a visual representation of that warm feeling.
Yeah.
Like, how could you not listen to that and not just be at peace? Like, it's so insane how that music can just make you feel that.
It's magic. Like, what they created with that album is magic. And I'm a huge Nirvana fan, and I don't really have, you know, any issue with like any of Nirvana's work. But if I'm gonna listen to anything from them above all else, it would be to throw on MTV Unplugged.
Absolutely.
Great number 2.
It was hard not to put that at number 1.
Right. I can see why.
Can imagine.
See why. Yeah.
So for number 1, the one that I decided to go with is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Yes. Great choice. Oh my God.
And
perfect.
It wasn't a hard choice to put this on the list, but it was a hard choice to figure out if this needed to go up to the number 1 spot.
Right.
And the reason why I put it in the number 1 spot, I love Pink Floyd and their albums because I feel like what they do really well is they tell like a continuous story across all of the songs. Like, it's a fluid narrative across every song. Each song is a different part of the story. And then by the end, you have experienced a full narrative, beginning, middle, and end.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's one of those albums.
Dark Side of the Moon, it's got, you know, it's so good because you could listen to it all the way through and have an awesome experience, but you could listen to the songs by themselves, right? You could listen to Great Gig in the Sky by itself. You could listen to Us and Them by itself, or Time by itself. Like, all these songs by themselves, Brain Damage, right? Like, listen to all of it by themselves, and they would still each feel like a complete experience, right? So they're good by themselves, but they're even better when combined together. And this was at a point in I was a teenager. I was kind of, you know, figuring out my musical taste. I was trying to figure out my identity, and I was exposed to Pink Floyd around that time. And I also, with my friends, I'll never forget this. I'll never forget trying to sync up Dark Side of the Moon with the Wizard of
Yes.
Oz
Oh
movie.
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
Going home to my
Yes.
friend's house after school one day, putting it on and kind of
Yeah.
looking at some of the connections, like, oh, like they're talking about this as this is going
Right.
on in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like it syncs up at times, right? Like,
Right.
or maybe like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know, like this one maybe not so much, but Dark Side of the Moon. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan.
Yes.
I really love pretty much like all of their work.
Mhm.
Mhm.
There's all like every single one of their albums has a little bit of something for me.
Yes.
But I gotta put Dark Side of the Moon up there as the quintessential Pink Floyd masterpiece, in my opinion. I had an honorable mention for Pink Floyd.
Okay.
As much as I like the rest of their albums as well, I also put Animals as an honorable mention.
Yes.
I
Another
love
great album by Pink
Animals
Floyd. Yes.
from beginning to end. You know, the pigs on the wing,
Mhm.
dogs, sheep,
Yes.
you know, just those songs, you know, for that album together too. That's also an album I could listen to from beginning to end and enjoy
Yeah.
it. But Pink Floyd, definitely one of my favorite bands of all time. And I just felt like it had to be ranked up there at the top of the list.
Yeah, it's one of those albums where it really, it's as much as it's a whole story. It's also immersive. Like, long story short, my brother Adam, back in like 2009, he went to school for in Arizona, and I went to visit him for a week, and he brought me in. He had Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon in quad.
Mhm.
We went into a studio, sat down, and he played it, and listening to it in quad was a whole different experience, and it really changed the way I listened to the album, because you can hear everything. It was like listening to it in surround sound, but everything was coming from a different speaker. So when you heard certain things like Money,
Mhm.
the intro, what you would hear behind you, in front of you, every time you would hear like the register cling, like everything about it. It was such an immersive experience to listen to that album in quad, like in all four speakers. It was
Yeah.
such it became like an immersive experience. I was immersed in Dark Side around me. Like, it was just such an incredible experience, and that album really, like you said, it really changed my perspective on things, just because, like I said, as much as each song is separate, it's also one long continuous story.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that makes my top 5 list of my top 5 favorite albums as it sits right here today.
Yes.
Tomorrow, if you ask me the same question, it might be a different one. You know,
Right.
next week
Yep.
it might be different. But as it stands right now, those are the 5 that I hold near and dearest
Awesome.
to my heart. And I really liked talking about music and the connection that, you know, we have to music, because like music, and we talked about it before, music and wrestling, universal languages that
Yeah.
everybody can, you know, everybody can speak. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that was awesome. I really enjoyed kind of talking through those and walking down memory lane, talking about those albums and the experiences connected to them.
And what an incredible top 5 list.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't find a whole lot of people that, because my musical width is huge. So, but I don't
expansive.
Oh, it is. But I don't find a whole lot of people that I really get like that kind of, like, if I was listening to music, you know, those are 5 albums I could have put on a list somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I don't find people that I really fall that in line musically with. But yeah, great top 5. Very exciting to hear. Love talking about music.
Yes.
So before we wrap things up and get out of here, guys, we are going to go over some upcoming events.
Stay. Or as Dylan Mesh puts it, impending doom.
All right, so let's talk about what you've got coming up there, Rabid one.
Yeah, so you know, right now I'm kind of gearing up for you know, August the 3rd. I'm actually gearing up for a vacation. I'm going to be going to Florida to take a nice, you know, relaxing 7 days on the beach. I don't know. I'm expecting I'm going to get, you know, sand in my fur, and I'm going to have a hell of a time getting it out.
Yes.
But other than that, I feel like it'll be a pleasurable experience. In August, I'll have some more shows coming up, probably towards the end of the month. So nothing to kind of promote and plug that's in the immediate future, but, you know, please follow me on the socials, and I'll, you know, keep people updated as my my wrestling excursions continue to unfold. And also too, I want to make sure to plug this, make sure, not to just follow me on social media, but also to come to shows and buy my merchandise. If you don't like my merchandise, make a donation to the Rabies Fund so that I can send rabies to everyone, especially the children of the world.
Oh God.
Make sure you do that. Go online to prowrestlingtees.com and buy one of my t-shirts if you want to buy something online. But also to just promote and support this podcast, people that love to talk about wrestling and talk about life, and also just come and support independent wrestling so that we can continue to provide escapism and make people happy.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we greatly appreciate that. And if we don't get canceled for supporting rabies, we have a few things coming up. So let's go down the list here. We got a busy week, Sean.
Yes, we do.
All right.
Indeed,
so
we do.
On Monday, we got another great episode of Chilling with the OC. Come and hang out with us. We watch Monday Night Raw. We talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. It is shenanigans to the 9. Don't forget this week, though, Raw's on Sci-Fi.
Oh, yes. Next 2 weeks.
Because of Olympic coverage. So then on Friday, boom, we got Chilling with the Bros.
And or just a bro.
Just
one
it's
bro.
Possible there may be one bro. It's possible there may be a substitute bro. We don't know.
You don't know.
But SmackDown is on Friday. We'll be watching that. And then next Sunday is the premiere of something new here on the Opinion City Podcasts channel.
Yes, we're excited.
It's Grappling with
next
the
Sunday,
Grooves.
baby.
So this is going to be our Opinion City episode next Sunday. However, it is also the premiere episode of Grappling with the Grooves, which is going to become a monthly show here on the Opinion City Podcasts, where people in the world of professional wrestling are going to talk about music, just like we did with today's guest, Rabid Ryan Mooney. Next week, our very first special guest will be Shay McCoy. We will be talking all things music. It is going to be exciting. So make sure you tune in for that. And just a few reminders while you're waiting for that, you can always check out our video interviews from Comrades for Vlad. Also keep an eye out on the channel for our video interviews coming up from the Real Rumble. We mentioned that we already have one. We announced one video with Ryan Mooney and Dylan Mesh, The Last Light. So we got to talk to them, but there are many other great interviews that are coming. They should be out within the coming week. We're just fine tuning everything and making sure everything is as perfect as it can be for you. And then, of course, while you're checking everything out, also check out our most recent episode of Wrestling with Life with Cowboy Pete Carter.
Amazing story.
And that's the thing. We've been talking to a lot of people with great stories. This guy's got a great one. 53 years old, jumps into the world of professional wrestling, is ring announcing, is doing commentary, is learning the business, and it's just a great conversation. And with that, Ryan, we want to thank you for your time today. It has been a fantastic episode.
Amazing.
I'm glad we got to sit down and talk with you. A lot of great stuff that I think people really will enjoy hearing your story and enjoy hearing your journey and just your thoughts on wrestling and music and life in general. It's been a great episode. So we appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always fun to talk about wrestling, and it's even more fun to just talk with people about life and the connections that we all have to each other and our shared experiences. I want to say I want to apologize to Shay McCoy for stealing their gimmick.
No.
Probably doing it better than they will do it. I just want to say, no shade intended. And also, I want to say too, Wild LLC. I expect you to promote me to a higher position in the organization. Because look how entertaining this interview was, and look at this content we're going to be providing to the masses.
Right.
Come on. See what they need to do is they need to make you the head of HR, Honey Badger Resources.
Exactly.
Well,
yes,
you need
the
to
Department
get on
of
there,
Honey Badger Resources.
You need to contact Steve, who is the current HR, and be like, listen,
Steve's a turd.
I want your job.
Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah. Give him rabies and then have him go off for a while.
Steve's the turd. We support you replacing him. We don't like Steve.
Steve rabies, and then we'll put him on disability leave.
There you go.
I like it.
Perfect.
The operation.
All right. So again, Ryan, thanks for your time. If you want to hang out for a minute, we'll be with you after we wrap up here.
Yes.
Thanks,
All right.
guys. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Thank you. And thank
All
you
right.
guys for sticking with our,
Yes.
I guess you could say, an extended episode, but we
Hey,
wanted to really get
listen.
down to brass tacks with Ryan Mooney and just some great stories that he gave us from all across the lifespan of a rabbit honey badger such as himself.
Absolutely. Just a great interview. You know, the more and more that we do this, I find that we find really interesting and great people to talk to. And I love being able to talk about the personal things and make personal connections. And it's a great time. So again, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Check us out on all the socials. Make sure you follow everything we're doing. Watch out for those new Real Rumble videos coming out. We will see you guys tomorrow night for Chilling with the OC. And with that, Sean, we are out.
On behalf of Wild LLC, this has been the Opinion City Podcast. It has been your pleasure.
Happy trails to you till we meet again.